So a few hours ago, Rooster Teeth just dropped the newest trailer for the upcoming Volume 5 of RWBY, and let me tell you that it looks fucking fantastic. Now I know what you're thinking, but Sam, RWBY isn't an anime, why are you covering it on your show? Well, let me tell you something. There are 3 shows that I consider to be the best non-anime anime who deserve coverage just because of how similar they are to being an anime, or they're just as good as anime in general. And those are Avatar / The Legend of Korra, RWBY, and Rick and Morty, and probably Young Justice when it returns, but yeah, those shows are what I like to consider non-anime anime. And I'm sure a lot of you watch RWBY anyways, so me giving it some extra time shouldn't bother you at all. I mean, when I went to Anime Expo, the RWBY panel was one of the busiest ones, so I'm positive that if you're an anime fan, you'd be a RWBY fan too. So, as I was saying, this next volume looks fucking fantastic. It was normal to see some visual improvements volume after volume, but this is some next level quality. I don't really know how to describe it, but if there was a perfect balance between CG and anime, this would be the closest thing to it. Everything just looks so refined in comparison to what this show once was. But I'm sure you've all already noticed how great the animation's looking, so let's move on to the contents of the actual trailer. Right from the beginning, we see that Team Ranger is still exploring Mistral. My guess would be that this was Haven Academy and it's empty now because of Salem's plans with Professor Lionheart. We knew from the end of Volume 4 that Haven's headmaster was the informant for Salem, so Haven Academy students were probably moved for some part of the plan or the other. But I find it interesting that mid-trailer we hear Professor Lionheart talking, but it doesn't seem like a conversation he'd be having with Watts. Here, take a listen.
Mistral's controlled territory is the widest reaching in the world, you know, and that makes it infinitely harder to protect. We get one shot at this.
We hear him say Mistral's controlled territory is the widest reaching in the world, you know, and that makes it infinitely harder to protect. We get one shot at this. I think Lionheart was just feeding information to Salem, and the people who he was actually talking to, saying that they only have one shot, was actually Crow and the rest of Team Ranger. I mean, the next scene does clip to them running out of a room that seems to be the same office that Lionheart was just sitting in, so that could be the case, but it's still just speculation. Now, if we go back to the next scene after the potential Haven Academy one, it's Salem and Cinder talking about their joint operations with the White Fang to destroy Haven. The White Fang are probably getting impatient that Salem isn't doing much to help them with their operation, since she's basically saying she'll help them when she gets what she wants. Which could be the Spring Maiden or something else that I'm not too sure of. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Speaking of the White Fang, the next scene flows nicely because it's Blake talking to her White Fang friend Ilya about how trying to stop the White Fang's movements in Menagerie won't work. But of course, Blake's just doing her thing, hunting people down and getting information, and apparently so is Yang because she's clearly back to her normal self. And what you may have missed from this scene here was Yang's red eyes, which normally turn red when she's emotional or angry and about to use her semblance at full strength, which seems to be the case here, but it looks a little bit more controlled than how it was in the past volumes. So maybe Yang's learning how to trigger her rage state in a more controlled fashion, you know, like the Hulk? Then we get the scene with Lionheart, which I had already talked about, so the next thing would then be Blake talking about how Adam isn't really helping the Faunus. Which we then get a scene of Adam talking to Sienna Khan. I believe this is our first time seeing her since I don't recognize her at all from any of the other volumes, but she's the real leader of the White Fang, the one who took over when Blake's dad stepped down from the position. Then we've got a few action shots, RWBY saying things are bad, and the next important statement was this.
My sister has the Spring Maiden and I know where she is. We need to go as soon as possible.
Yep, that's right. Raven has the Spring Maiden, Crow knows where she is, so that means we're finally gonna get a meeting between RWBY and Raven. Hopefully. You could assume that in this scene here we're seeing things from the perspective of the Spring Maiden, looking up at Raven and her partners as she had just been captured. I don't know why the Spring Maiden would need to be hunted by them, but I assume it's in order to prevent her from being captured by Salem. Either that or it's one of Salem's goons, for lack of a better word. We'll just have to see. Now we've got a transport carrier being chased by some insect-like Grimm while heading towards a certain mountainous region. If you were to look at the world map for the show, there are 2 potential places that I think this could be. Either the less likely southern part of Vacuo, or what I think to be is the middle part of Vale. Although I could just be totally wrong and it would make more sense if it was just one of the northern parts of Mistral, but once again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. A few more action shots later and we have the next important clip, Salem obviously getting angry at who seems to be Professor Lionheart. But what's more interesting is if this is the case, we get our first look at Salem's weapon of choice, the whip. And as you already know, most weapons in this universe double as something else, so it'd be interesting to see what other function that whip has. Then there's a clip of Weiss's Armagigas summon falling into action. I'm hoping this is like one of those scenes where RWBY and the rest of them are fighting someone, and then Weiss just comes out of nowhere to help. Like, I'm gonna guess that the original Team RWBY are all gonna meet up again at one point during the season for one big fight. Most likely not against Salem, probably one of her servants, but it'll still be a pretty cool thing to see all of their improved selves back in action and fighting as a team. And then there was the final scene where Oscar finally meets up with the rest of the team, which could mean a number of things. The location is the office that has appeared 3 other times this trailer. I'd like to think that it's at Haven Academy where they're plotting with Professor Lionheart on how to surprise Salem, but we never get to see them in the same room as Professor Lionheart, so it can't be 100% confirmed yet. But Oscar was heading to Haven Academy, so it would make sense that that's where they are all meeting. Anyway, that's pretty much everything that I could get from the trailer so far. Feel free to let me know in the comments below if I missed something. We'll find out everything in 5 days or so anyway, so it's not a big deal, but I just thought I'd share some of my insights on one of my favorite shows right now. I hope you guys don't mind the RWBY content, but if you did like it, please just let me know if you want more. Or just like the video. And if you haven't seen RWBY yet, then do yourself a favor and watch it. It's really good. I promise that you won't be disappointed. As I said before, it's one of the best non-anime anime out there, and I'd love to make more content about this series. So as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, ciao.